Hi all, today I wanted to talk to you about the power of breathing. And this is for Melissa Biscardi's webinar all about how we can help people with concussions. So I don't do any work with people with concussions, but what I do know is about the nervous system. So just to give you a little explanation, what I'm going to do is describe the nervous system, describe how we can manipulate the nervous system with breathing and what the benefits of breathing are. And then what I'd like to do is do a demo, a very quick demo where we lie on the floor and we get comfortable and we just get into our breath. So we have the peripheral nervous system, the PNS. There are two branches to that nervous system that we're going to be talking about, and that is the fight or flight, which is the sympathetic nervous system, and the rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. So don't get lost on the language. We just need to know the difference between one or the other. So when we take shallow, and most people don't breathe deeply, and when I talk and educate, I tend to breathe quickly because I'm nervous. So what happens is when we breathe quickly, we pull ourselves into that fight or flight. So you could think about it as we become like we're running from a lion sort of thing. Now, when we breathe slowly and deeply, we shift out of that fight or flight and we go into that parasympathetic rest and digest portion of the nervous system where we're kind of sitting by the campfire with our family and friends and singing Kumbaya, or at least that's the objective. So some of the signs and symptoms that you're getting into that fight or flight would be like right now the news, hugely sympathetic. I can feel it as it goes through my system. High intensity exercise like HIIT classes, like anything that really drives up your nervous system is not generally good for people that are stressed generally in life. So it might feel good because we're used to that adrenaline, but in the long run it can actually break down our bodies and push us into that fight or flight. Crappy diets, dehydration, all these things can have an effect and push us into fight or flight. So we want to consider our whole well-being from a holistic perspective. So are we sleeping? Are we eating well? All these type of things come into play. What can push us into rest and digest is some things like breathing, which we're going to talk more about, sleeping, connecting to the people that we love, laughter, all these kind of things are very helpful. So not only can breathing help shift us into that more relaxed state and all the wonderful exercises that Melissa Biscardi has had in her webinar, but also it can decrease inflammation in the body by making our bodies more alkaline in nature. It can help regulate our digestion. So if you have any things like gastric reflux or constipation, these type of things, we can actually calm our nervous system into relaxation, which helps the rest and digest part of our nervous system. And then also it gets us out of our heads, which can be spinning, especially right now, and into our bodies and get us grounded where we can kind of calm down. So I hope you join me, get comfortable on the floor, or you can do this seated too, but let's go into it and hope you can enjoy some rest and digest through breathing. Okay, everybody, now we're down on the floor. You can do this from seated as well, but I like doing it on the floor with most of my clients because being on the floor keeps us pretty grounded. So if you're on the floor, one of the things I do suggest, and this goes back to what Melissa was talking about, is that you do not want your head sort of in a flexed position too much through the back of your spine. Because again, that can kind of cause trouble with the vagus nerve. So we want to try and keep that head nice and kind of flat against the floor. So if you need something to lift your head up, you can do that with a pillow. You want to stay comfortable, so you can extend your legs out if that feels good. I kind of like keeping them bent because they keep my pelvis in a nice position where I can kind of feel my breath coming down. So one of the things I suggest people do is they get their hands on their abdomen, because when you use your hands, you can feel where you're breathing into and where you're not. So what I would suggest is as you keep your hands on your abdomen, you're just going to take a deep breath in, and we want to keep the hands low, right onto the hips. So as you inhale and exhale, you can kind of start to feel the breath rise in your abdomen. And talking about the lower, because we're trying to get down into the pelvic floor. So another benefit to this deep, slow breathing, and as you're doing that, you're just inhaling and exhaling, trying to slow down the breath.
But one of the benefits to this type of breathing is it actually activates the deep core muscles, and that's really important for our stabilization and our musculoskeletal health. So just another benefit to deep breathing. So as you inhale, you can kind of start to feel the pelvic floor expand, and then exhale. And sometimes a lot of people can't access this type of breathing because we're so up in our shoulders. So I just want you to spend some time down in that lower part. We're going to take 3 big deep breaths. Feeling it rise and exhale slowly. And here you also want to maximize your breathing in that parasympathetic rest and digest tone by inhaling through your nose. And you can either exhale through your mouth or your nose, but always the inhale in the nose. You might now want to close your eyes a little bit. Again, by closing the eyes, we tend to shut off the senses a little bit. So again, we get more grounded in the body, less in our heads. Good, and now you want to think about that whole pelvic area and that you're breathing 3-dimensionally, and that as you do that, you're softening around your shoulders. Nice, long, slow breaths. And you can count your breath with this too, or you can just kind of slow down the breathing. I find if I'm counting, some people have different breathing patterns. So you can do just the plain breathing, or if you want to count, you can do that. The next thing you want to do is kind of breathe now. We're going to move up into the waist. So we still want to breathe down into the pelvis, but the second area is your belly button waist area. So as you do that, you're going to take a deep breath in and then exhale. And most people have a pretty good sense of their belly breathing, especially if you've done any type of yoga. So now you're feeling your abdomen and your pelvis with the shoulders being relaxed. You also want to wrap your awareness now around your waist. So start to feel the breathing down and around the waist. Good, and now start to sink a little bit more into the floor. Start to relax a little bit more. Now we're going to move up into the rib cage. So you can think about your bra strap, or for men, like a heart rate monitor. And also to use your hands if you can. You can either wrap your hand around the side of your ribs on one side, or you could take both hands. But what I'd like you to do is now we're going to focus on the right side of your rib cage. And another area we get stuck is within the ribs. So this might take some time. Don't get frustrated. Just try and take some time, because like Melissa said yesterday, it's not a practice that you do once. It's a practice you do over and over again. Every morning I wake up and I think about my breathing. And as you start to breathe into the ribs, you might start to feel like you're activating your shoulders and neck. Try and soften through that area. Inhale into the rib cage. Exhale. Now you're going to shift your awareness over onto the left side of your rib. So again, you can just take one hand or both, but just trying to breathe into the left side. And sometimes we can be restricted on one side more than the other, and you can imagine how this pulls our posture out of position as well. So we want to be aware of where we're not breathing or able to breathe into, so we spend more time there. Now lastly, we're going to breathe sort of into the sternum, so you can place your hands right in between your breasts or on your chest, and just breathing into the sternum. And this is one of the hard ones for me. I have a hard time breathing up towards the ceiling and then down into the floor. So you want to feel like a balloon is pushing the sternum up and also pushing your spine down into the floor. So again, notice where you're restricted. Now let's go back to all 3 points and see if you can think about a big balloon, sort of like a long balloon, going up to the sides and back towards the floor on all 3 parts, the pelvic floor, the waist, and the rib cage. Inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling, and just softening the breath. Lastly, one of the areas that we can get stuck in, I just want you to focus on this by placing your hand in your lower back or just feel it against the floor, is our diaphragms can actually get stuck. And our diaphragm kind of connects to the rib cage all the way around the front and the back. So what I'd like you to try and focus on is just breathing into the floor through the back of your ribs. So you might find when you take a deep breath in, your body comes off your hands. You want to feel like it's going down into the floor, so we know that that diaphragm's coming out and going wide. And again, please keep in mind all this takes practice. So I'm just going to get you guys to do the next 5 breaths in silence, all 3 points. Finding those tight areas again and seeing if you can access them. And on your exhales, softening more into the floor. Good. Now when you come up, you want to slowly come up. So we're just going to roll onto the side and then gently come up, because if you come up too quickly, you can just get a little dizzy. So like I was saying, this is what you want to practice probably once a day. I usually do it first thing in the morning. I tie my habits into something I'm already doing. So waking up, I don't go for my phone like I used to. I actually spend a good 5 minutes just focusing on my breathing and maybe even thinking about something I'm grateful for, because that again pushes us out of the fight or flight and into rest and digest. So I hope that helps. I wish you all the best with it. Thanks for tuning in.